Hey there, today I'm going to show you how to light up your home with some LEDs. Let's get started.
I'm going to be installing two different types of LEDs for this setup, the first being ones triggered by a motion sensor, which you see here. And all the products that I use in the video I bought through Amazon, and I'll make sure to leave links down in the description. It's convenient that everything you need is included right in the box, including your LEDs, motion sensor, and your power adapter. I'll be plugging in the LEDs to the corner cabinet, however I want them to start on this front cabinet on the right hand side. Therefore, I'm drilling out holes between the cabinets so I can feed a wire from that corner cabinet to this front cabinet. I can also go ahead and install the toe kicks in conjunction with the LEDs, as I've been waiting to do so because I needed access to the underside of the cabinets. And as you can see, I cut a small hole at the top of the toe kick so I could feed the wire out the front of the cabinet. Now normally you would connect the motion sensor here directly to the LED strip and they start right after one another. However, I want the motion sensor back in that corner where the outlet is, but the LEDs to start at that front cabinet. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the LED strip, making sure to cut directly on top of the copper, that way you can still hook up the LEDs with wire later on. I'm then going to take one of these connectors and plug one end into the LED strip coming out of the motion sensor, and then I'll plug the other end into the wire going to the corner cabinet. I'll take a second connector and connect it to the wire coming out of the front cabinet, and then connect the other end to the remainder of the LEDs. Gave it a little quick test, and luckily everything works. I then went ahead and installed the toe kick to the left of the fridge now that I know that all the electronics are working correctly.
So now that we have the toe kicks installed on the cabinets behind me, we're now going to install these black aluminum rails. This will allow the LEDs to be mounted to a nice flat surface that they will adhere well to, and also it'll allow them to shine at a 45-degree angle so we get the best lighting. All I need to do is cut them down to size and then I can pop them into place. Let's get to it. So it's a bit hard to see down there under the toe kick, so I'm going to demonstrate here. But basically this wire is what's coming out of the cabinet, and this is what's going to mount under the toe kick. And what's really nice is that these LED strips come with this end cap here, so I can put that here to make it a nice clean finish. And then the wire can feed in through this small hole here, and then the LEDs go inside. So it's a pretty nice clean setup. And then this will be covered with a white plastic shield to diffuse the light. Also, in order to mount this aluminum rail underneath the toe kick, the kit comes with these pieces here, and as you can see, there's a hole in it so you can screw it directly into the toe kick, and then these snap into place on the rail like so, and it'll hold it in place like that. Pretty nice.
I went ahead and connected the wire coming out of the front cabinet to the LEDs and then placed it inside of the rail and started pulling off the adhesive backing to the LEDs so I could attach it. I then slid on the white plastic diffuser and gave it another quick test, and luckily everything still works. I went ahead and fed the excess wire back underneath the cabinet and then popped the LED strip into place. I then repeated these same steps to install the LEDs on the other cabinets and again gave it another quick test. I find it much easier to test the LEDs as you go rather than waiting until the very end because it makes troubleshooting so much easier.
Alright, that is pretty cool. I thought it was going to be pretty awesome, but that is even better than I expected. So now that we have this side done, we can now work on this side of the bar. I'm going to first install the toe kicks and then install the lighting. Let's get to it.
Now to power these LEDs on this side, I'm going to connect a wire from the end of the first LED strip in that corner, run it across the wall, and then connect it to the LEDs on this side.
Alright, so I haven't tested it yet. I'm going to plug it in and see if both sides work. Cross my fingers it does.
And they didn't turn on. However, back to that troubleshooting comment, I was able to quickly find out that one of the wires had come loose on the connectors, so I just plugged that back in and gave it a second test.
Alright, let's try that one more time. I think it's going to work this time.
Oh yeah.
Now the last step to do in this section of the lighting is to install the baseboard over here, and that's going to cover up the tile edge as well as cover up the cord connecting the two LED strips. I made sure to notch out the board so that the electrical cord has room to run behind the baseboard. Let's go ahead and install it. So in order to feed the LEDs underneath the fridge and make it look seamless between these cabinets, I had to push the feet of the fridge further back. However, this caused a bit of a problem because now when you open the door, the fridge tips a little bit, as you can see. So we don't want it tipping, we want it nice and sturdy. So I made some brackets, and what these are going to do is go on the back of the fridge like so. And I'm going to screw them into either side of these cabinets, and that will prevent the fridge from wanting to go upward. So let's go ahead and install them. And so now that those are installed, let's give it a test. And no rocking. Works pretty well.
And now we can start working on the third and final set of LEDs for this motion sensor, and it's going to go underneath the bar top here. I connected a wire to the end of the second set of LEDs and fed it through the cabinet and up out the top to power this third set.
I'm now going to start installing the clips on top of these battens for the LED rails. I installed the first clip just underneath this countertop support. I then set up my laser to be perfectly level with the screw, and now I can make sure all my clips are in a perfect line. Let's go ahead and install them.
And here's some actual footage of installing those clips, since I couldn't show you guys the ones underneath the toe kick, but it's just one screw and a pretty easy install. I then realized I didn't have enough of the LED strip to cover the full 10 feet of length underneath the bar top. However, I did order a second set, and therefore I was able to couple them together with another connector.
Alright, so I cut the rails down to size and installed them, and I think in this case it'll actually be easier to install the LEDs while the rails are in place, and then I'll come back and install the diffuser after that. Let's get to it. Alright, that was a lot smoother than I expected. It actually was a lot easier to kind of pop in the diffuser rather than slide it in. It took me so long over there and I got blisters on my fingers. I should have just done that. But anyway, let's go give it a test and see if it works. That looks so good. Honestly, like extremely professional. I'm pretty proud of this. This does not look DIY at all. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the lights and see what it looks like in the dark.
Now that all the LEDs on the motion sensor are complete, we're going to move on to the other set of LEDs, which are going to be on a switch and light up both the cabinets and backlight the TV. Now I already installed all the LEDs on the left side cabinet, so let me quickly show you how everything works.
Down in this cabinet I have a transformer and a switch to turn on and off the lights. That's probably temporary, as I'll move the switch up here a little bit later. So a wire comes out of the transformer down in this cabinet and runs behind the cabinet up the wall and goes into this cabinet in this top left corner. It then goes into an LED strip right here, and I did have to break it a few times because of the hinges, but it still provides an ample amount of light. Then it goes across this middle hinge, and a second LED strip is then continued down this edge, and you can kind of see a wire going here down into the cabinet. I then routed out a channel underneath, so the wire goes across the cabinet underneath so you can't really see it. Then it comes back up right here and goes up this full length LED strip, as there's no hinges, so there's no breaks needed. And then it comes out the top right here into this wire. This wire will then feed across to the other cabinet that we're going to go ahead and start now.
I actually built and painted these cabinets myself, and if you wanted to see that process, you can check out the earlier episodes in this bar build series. The first step was reinstalling the hinges, and then I drilled holes at the top and bottom of each side of the cabinet, and that way I can feed the low voltage wire into the cabinet without it being too visible.
So now I need to router out a small slit to connect the two holes that I just drilled at the bottom of the cabinet so I can feed the wire through there. I'm going to use my track saw. You can also use a circular saw to do this. You just got to be really careful not to go too far into the material. This is 3/4 inch, and I'm going to be cutting about 3/8, so halfway in.
I was extremely nervous for this cut, but luckily everything went smoothly. And here you can see how that wire is going to slide into the two holes and then go into the slot, and this way it can sit flush on the countertop. I then installed the rails, and the reason I'm doing vertical rails is so that each shelf gets ample coverage. If I put them at the top and bottom, I think the middle shelf wouldn't actually get too much light, so I thought this was the best option. And I actually installed the rails using super glue and tape to hold them down rather than the clips that you saw earlier. And the reason I did this is so when you open up the cabinet, you don't visibly see the clips, as I thought it wouldn't look too good. I also switched to using these connectors that you see here for the wire to LED connections, as these screws tend to hold a little bit better, and it comes with a little screwdriver too. I then began installing and wiring in the LEDs. I decided to start on the hinge side, as I thought that'd be a little bit harder. So here is basically two 12-inch sections of LEDs connected in the middle by a wire to go over that center hinge. I then fed the wire out the bottom and around through that routed slot that we cut earlier, and then out the other side. I then installed the two diffusers, making sure to cover up as much of the LEDs and wire as I could before flipping the cabinet over to work on the other side. This side was a bit easier, as it's just one long strip of LEDs.
Now that we have all the wiring done inside the cabinet, we can go ahead and lift it into place. Now, in order to run power from this cabinet that already has it to the newly installed cabinet, we're going to take the wire up here, which has power, currently not on, and I'm going to hide it up in the ceiling, and we're going to run it across this way. It'll come into the cabinet here and feed power to this LED strip. It'll follow the wire underneath the cabinet and come back up this side to power this LED strip and this LED strip.
I waited till now to install the LEDs on the left-hand side because it would be a little bit easier to make the connection with some slack in the wire.
And now that that's in, we can put our diffuser on. Alright, now that that's in, let's give it a quick test to make sure all the lights work. Sweet! So now the last step in this process is to hide this LED wire, and that's easy enough just by hiding it up in the ceiling behind one of these beams, and you'll never see it. Now that we have that wire hidden, we have to hide one more wire. As you can see, there's actually a wire coming out of the top right corner of this cabinet on the right, and you might be asking, where's that going? It's actually going to be going back to the middle. We were planning on maybe putting a shelf here that lit up from the bottom to display liquor bottles, but since we already have two pretty large cabinets and we're not huge drinkers, I don't think we need that extra storage. So we're going to be putting a TV here instead, because we all like watching TV, and I'm going to backlight that with even more LEDs, so that's what this is going to power. It's going to come in from the top down here, and then I'll put LEDs on the perimeter of the TV to backlight this surface, and I think it's going to look really cool.
And while I wait for the TV to get delivered, I decided to finish off the cabinet. I installed the opposing part to all 3 hinges and then put in this cool metal grate so you can actually see into the cabinet.
Now all we need to do is add a handle and the shelves. So for the handles, we're going to be going with these 12-inch knurled handles, and I was at a real crossroads because I wasn't sure where to put them. I originally thought about putting it at the very bottom like this, but then I thought it looked a little weird and it was kind of abnormally low. So I'm like, maybe I'll put it in the middle, but then that also looked a bit weird and I thought it was abnormally high. So I ended up deciding to center it on this lower shelf here. So it'll be about in that position there, which I think is natural for your hand to reach toward, and I think it looks nice as well. So let's go ahead and install it.
From there, I used my laser level to align the upper cabinet with the lower base cabinet, and then I screwed it into place using trim screws directly behind the shelves so you'll never see them. By then the TV had arrived, so I went ahead and applied my LEDs to the perimeter on the backside. And when I installed this concrete accent wall, I had completely forgotten to hide this wire, so I went ahead and applied an additional coat of concrete over top of it to hide it. After mounting the TV, the last step was to stock the bar. And with that, this project is complete. In the end, the motion sensor worked perfectly as it triggers just as you enter the bar, and I put the LEDs in the cabinets and the TV on a dimmer switch, that way you can dial it up or down depending on the setting that you want. I really hope you guys enjoyed this week's project, and if you did, please smash that like button as it really helps out the channel. And if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more DIY projects like this one, and as always, thanks for watching and happy building. See you next week.